Welcome everyone to another episode of Follow the Light Music Review. My name is John DeLaurentis and this is episode 11 of Revisiting the Classics. And today we're going to be looking at an artist who is foundational to Christian rock music. And I'm talking about Larry Norman. And we're going to be looking at his debut solo album from 1969-1970, Upon This Rock. Before we get into that, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video, make some comments about your recollections of this album and Larry Norman in general, and also ring the bell for notifications so you can stay up to date with all the new content being put onto the channel. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so we're looking at, like I said, Larry Norman, Upon This Rock. Okay. And a little bit about Larry Norman. Everyone should know about Larry Norman. If you don't, then you should. Larry Norman is often called the father of Christian rock. His importance to Christian music cannot be understated. He began his musical output with a band called People, and their debut album was originally called We Need a Whole Lot More of Jesus and a Lot Less Rock and Roll. So that was the original title of the album, but Capitol Records, a mainstream label that released it, decided to change the album title to I Love You, which was a song that's on the album, which is a cover of the Zombies song. Really good cover, by the way. And as the result of this direction, Larry felt like he was kind of being stifled, and so he left People. So People did actually go on to record 2 more albums without Larry Norman. But Larry Norman started his solo career in 1969-1970 with the Upon This Rock album, his debut album. And it was, strangely enough, it was on Capitol Records. And Capitol Records let him do what he set out to do without interference here. And so the album itself is often cited as the first Christian rock album. Its significance is potent, for it spearheaded the possibility of using rock music for Christian purposes, something that was frowned upon by the Christian music world. When you think of the early Petra albums, right? The first debut album of Petra and the second album, Come and Join Us, which came out in the 70s, Petra went through a lot of flack from people who were against this wedding of Christian principles and lyrics and biblical things being wed to Christian rock music. And they had to fight through all that because prior to that, your Christian music was not really very contemporary with what was going on in the mainstream world. You know, you have your folk music, you have your Southern gospel, you have that kind of thing. But in terms of rock and roll, Larry Norman was kind of a trailblazer here. And some people would maybe argue there were some other albums released prior to this one, but this one is generally considered the first Christian rock album, or at least maybe the first Christian rock album of significance, great significance in terms of its impact. And this album, of course, has a whole lot of gems on it, and it includes 2 of Larry's most iconic and well-known songs, Sweet, Sweet Song of Salvation and I Wish We'd All Been Ready. And this album musically had some of the top session musicians of the day on it. So who were they? Hal Blaine on drums, Joe Osborne on bass, Larry Knechtel on keyboards. And Larry Knechtel, by the way, would go on to greater fame from being just a studio musician into the soft pop rock group Bread, with David Gates, so he was a part of that band in the 1970s. And Michael Deasy on acoustic guitar. There's orchestration handled on this album by Anthony Harris, and then Larry himself plays guitar and piano, and of course is the lead vocalist here. The inspirations as a group They provide the background vocals on here. So again, some people might say in the Larry Norman discography, his trilogy of albums, Only Visiting This Planet, So Long Ago, The Garden, and In Another Land, stand as his high musical watermarks. But this is the album where it all began, and so I think it's significant to talk about this one first. So let's give a little bit of a look at this CD version of it. Try to get the glare out of there. But this is the Kingsway Classics version. And this version, not too much in terms of what you get inside. The booklet just basically is a fold out, which lists some other albums from Kingsway. It says the Magnificent Seven celebrate Kingsway's 21 years at the time of this CD release of music ministry with the superb CDs, part of the history of Christian music. And this one came out in 1989 and was digitally remastered here. And it has a nice little part of the album cover here. And I wanted to read what they wrote here, because I think what they wrote here in terms of notes, this is all there is on here, but they made a very impactful statement. It says here, Larry's impact on the development of British and American contemporary Christian music was momentous. Here was a man who didn't sing about safe subjects, who played a raw, earthy rock, who dressed in black, and who, despite all of this, was militantly Christian. Norman, like a Christian subculture Bob Dylan, wove together religious themes, surrealistic visions, and songs of devotion in a fashion that was irresistible to Christian young people, wary of the glee club folk music that was often passed off as young people's music. And then they go on to say, Upon This Rock was the album that signaled his arrival, and its appeal has continued unabated. And that's definitely to this day. Its significance was far beyond its musical impact, because it has symbolized the dawn of a new age of thoughtful Christian communication. All right, so that is some nice notes that they put in here. And that's about all that you get here. You, like I said, you just get the songs on the back here, and the CD, regular traditional CD. And this is a short album. It's like 33 minutes long, but its impact from beginning to end and what it accomplished is amazing. And we're going to talk about these songs on here. And most of these songs, if you have any familiarity with Larry Norman or a fan, you know these songs here, and you've heard them. Larry Norman, of course, with his own record label Solid Rock, went on to release so many CDs. I have quite a number of them, but there's quite a number I don't have. He had a lot of releases, live albums, alternate takes of things, and demos. There's just a whole bunch, and there's some really good websites on the work of Larry Norman that I'll put in the description below that you can go check out. People who have really chronicled the music of Larry Norman over the years. So let's look at the songs on this particular album. So this song, the opening song on this album is a song called You Can't Take Away the Lord. And this opens up with an acoustic riff and percussion and some rollicking piano. And it has a proclamation in it that no matter what someone tries to take away, you can't take away the Lord. So they maybe try to take away this, and this, but you can't take away the Lord. Larry has some great vocal harmonies on this one. And the song overall has a jubilant melody to it that kind of anchors its message. So it's a really great short song. I think it's only a little bit over 2 minutes long, but it's a really good opening track for the album. This is followed by I Don't Believe in Miracles. And this kind of takes the lyrics into a darker place about a cynical person who doesn't believe in miracles and believes that life is one big bluff. But he hears someone's witness, and this makes all his fears fall on the floor. And so the song is interesting. He's got this person and what they're thinking in their head. I don't believe in miracles, and all of this kind of dark commentary about life. But he encounters someone who has the light of Christ, and it changes him, And so really, really interesting lyrics. I mean, Larry Norman, one of the best lyricists in all of Christian music, really thought-provoking lyrical compositions, as well as musical compositions. Here he's writing all these songs here. And the song, it kind of has a poppy sound to it. We would say it even sounds a little bit with the harmony of some Partridge Family. Of course, Partridge Family started in 1970 in terms of the musical show about the fictitious Partridge Family, but those kind of harmonies are kind of present on this song, and it has some orchestrated parts in it as well. This is followed by a song called Moses in the Wilderness. Now, this is a song that's very much a story song in the vein of Bob Dylan. It relates to the story of Moses in the wilderness, and it talks about his interactions with Pharaoh. And Larry is singing over some bluesy acoustic folk blues here with some horn embellishments and strings. He uses his humor here because he mentions about Moses kept bugging Pharaoh, and he even used real bugs, and that typical of some of that humorous things that Larry would say. If you've heard any of his live concerts, this is very typical for him to do this kind of dry humor things that he would insert in his dialogue with the audience or just into his lyric writing and his songs. Brilliant songwriter. This is followed by another song that's just incredible lyrically. It's called Walking Backwards Down the Stairs. Immediately you see that image in your mind and you're saying, it's something to make you think. This begins with an almost harpsichord sounding intro here, and it sounds like something that would not sound out of place on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album. And of course, some people have called this album the Sgt. Pepper of Christian music in terms of how it sounds and the things that he was doing musically on here. That might be a little bit of a stretch here, but in this song for sure, this sounds like something that could sit easily on the Sgt. Pepper Beatles album here. Larry's creative lyrics here, they compare walking backwards down the stairs as a metaphor for failure and the uncomfortable eyes of others looking at you when you make mistakes. And of course, you might think in terms of maybe people who become Christians, and they're young Christian, and they're very suddenly aware of their sin in their life, and they're aware of the fact that maybe they're going to let somebody down, and so they have these worries about failure and about people looking at them and them letting them down, and so this song kind of encapsulates that very clearly. However, you soon realize that everyone has mishaps, and so you kind of learn to move forward in your creativity in the world and recognize that you're a sinner saved by the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So again, a great song, very creative in its lyrical content. So let's talk about the next song on here, Ha Ha World. This one has some jangly guitars in it and very strong bass line as a backbone to the song. It sounds similar to the kind of songs that Randy Stonehill, who Larry Norman led to Christ, would later write in the 1970s. Remember, another one of the most important albums in Christian music is Randy Stonehill's Welcome to Paradise. This is an interesting song about feeling like you don't fit into the world and you're not finding acceptance. So kind of carrying forth that theme of the walking backwards down the stairs. And the person realizes he's going down a dead-end street, and he needs God in his life to find purpose. So this is someone who, whereas the first song may be the musings of a young Christian feeling that they're failing and letting people down, this is someone who doesn't know Christ and feels that they don't fit into the world, but then they realize that God is who they need in their life to give themselves purpose here. So another great lyrical song with Larry Norman. Next is one of his most famous songs, Sweet, Sweet Song of Salvation. This is a classic early Norman song. It's got a bouncy, fun type of sound to it that would, it sounds like a youth choir choral anthem. It's driven by a fast drum beat. Larry's na-na-nas that he does in the song adds some nice keyboard punch-ins and an infectious bass groove too. It's the type of song that celebrates the gospel of Christ and encourages witnessing to everyone. There's even some hand clapping added to underscore its liveliness. So it's very, very kind of jubilant song that you can hear a youth choir singing. This is followed by Forget Your Hexagram. And this is a song that is a great keyboard and bass driven song, strong drums and percussion on this one. It sounds like a typical 1960s pop rock song, similar to many of the bands of the time. The lyrics point to the futility of looking for enlightenment or spiritual freedom through the stars or other mystical pursuits. So Larry sums it up beautifully when he poetically writes, you can't hitchhike to heaven or get there by just being good. All right, the rules were set down long ago when the spikes went in the wood, of course, referring back to the crucifixion of Christ on here. So another really strong lyrical song. This is followed by The Last Supper. Now, this is a really interesting song. This borrows its musical style from Broadway show tunes. The song uses a pulsating piano melody here. It tells the story of a man who believes he's in heaven, but then he soon realizes that he most definitely isn't. And Larry at one point pounds on the piano. It's got this really couple times in the songs where it just starts pounding on the piano in a discordant type way, kind of to musically illustrate the man's confusion and to build the song's drama. Then this is followed by the other very, very well-known song on this album called I Wish We'd All Been Ready. This is probably one of the most popular songs in all of Norman's discography, has been covered by a number of other artists. It became an anthem of the Jesus movement at the time. It has very creative lyrics, and it builds upon the popular belief about the rapture that states that there will be a secret rapture that takes people before the second coming of Christ, that takes place before the second coming of Christ. Now, this is, of course, a teaching that a lot of people in Christianity have questioned. It also is not found in the foundational teachings of the church fathers of the Christian church. But it is something that is kind of assigned to dispensational theology. All right. But whether you believe in the rapture or not, and end times theology shouldn't separate Christians, because we all believe in the indisputable fact of the second coming of Christ. There's no denying that this song has power. It's underscored by beautiful acoustic guitar, beautiful melody, and some of Larry's most tender and emotional singing here. This is followed by the two ending songs of the album. Nothing really changes. This opens up with audience cheering as if the song is being recorded live, but it's not actually. It's just a very typical thing that a lot of people have done to create an audience, to make it appear like it's a live song, even though it's not. And this is another one that borrows from the Broadway song style with some choral singing as the song drops names like Shakespeare, Cleopatra, Ben-Hur, and it states in the lyrics, nothing really changes, everything remains the same. We are what we are till the day that we die, unless we love the Lord. So it's a very, very creative song, and again, making kind of cultural references in here. And it kind of immediately goes into the songs are not separated. In other words, there's no pause in between the two songs run together. It ends with postlude, and this is connected to that song. Nothing really changes, like I said. And this is an interesting kind of summation of taking all of those songs that we've previously heard on the album and kind of recasting them all together as a kind of Broadway song cycle melody. And that's what you find in this song, and it's kind of a nice way to revisit some of the songs in there, but in this kind of Broadway, review of different songs here. So it's very interesting that Larry found out much later that he had family connections in the past to the theater that he was not made aware of until much later. His grandfather, Burl Stout, had been a Shakespearean actor in vaudeville. His Aunt Nina performed in nightclubs, traveling with her own baby grand piano. And his father had his own radio show when he was 10, playing harmonica to the accompaniment of his father playing the guitar. And then Larry, of course, realized that his penchant for drama and, kind of this Broadway song cycle and theater type music was literally in his blood as part of his family roots here. So not surprising to see that in some of these songs here where he uses that. There was a deluxe collector's edition of this album that was released in 2002 by Solid Rock Records, and it added a second disc. And that second disc included a couple interviews, and I think on the first disc there were some demo tracks of some of the songs on the album, and it had a very extensive booklet. So that is kind of probably the most updated upgrade of this particular album. But the one that I have here from 1989, even though it's kind of no frills in terms of its booklet, sounds great. The remastering sounds great. And again, Larry Norman, Upon This Rock is an essential album for any serious Christian music fan to own in his or her music library. So again, Larry Norman, like I said, would go on to record so many great albums. And then, of course, there was a lot of Solid Rock releases over the years, and I've tried to collect as many as I can. I have quite a number of them, but I'm still missing some pieces here and there of their stuff. And his brother, Charlie Norman, is still mining some of that stuff of Larry Norman there. There was a release of a live album from the United Kingdom in 1977 that was part of either a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. I can't remember which one it was. I know I was a part of it, but they came out with a wonderful release of that, and maybe we'll talk about that at a later date and talk about Larry Norman's music more maybe in some later episodes as well. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. Again, Larry Norman, Upon This Rock, essential album to own, very important to Christian rock music, and trailblazing and innovative. So thank you for spending time with me, and I would appreciate if you again could leave some comments. Let's get a discussion talking about what you think about this album, what your recollections of it. Maybe you were around when it first came out. I was alive at the time the album came out, but of course I was very young, and I discovered Christian music much later in the 80s. So Larry Norman was one of those artists I went back to, and then got into this album and all of his other trilogy albums and all of that much later on. So let's start a conversation in the comments about Larry Norman and about this particular album, and maybe some other Larry Norman albums that are important or pivotal in your collection. Okay, so as always, I encourage you to follow the light which shines out in the darkness. God bless everyone.